In today's lecture, we'll talk about GDP over time and business cycle. Let's first start with US real GDP from 1947 till 2017. And we can see over time, US real GDP has increased systematically. However, every year is not an increase. We can see in certain years, there's a decrease in real GDP. And you can see real GDP decreased during 2008-2009 time period. Real GDP decreased here. Real GDP decreased in 1983-84. Real GDP decreased a little bit in 2001. Now these are the years what we call recession years. Typically during recessions, real GDP decreases. In this graph, what you see, these gray lines, these are recession years. So during the recession, GDP does decline. Now always remember, the increase in GDP is not guaranteed. We have multiple years when GDP actually decline, and when GDP declines, which typically means that our income falls, that's also the time when factories or employment decreases. Let's look at the US GDP growth rate. You can see in each of these gray bar years, GDP declined below zero. So this is the growth rate, and when GDP decreases, growth rate is negative or below zero. Now, these ups and downs in GDP is often called business cycle. Now let's first try to define business cycle. So business cycle is the economic's relatively short-term movement in and out of recession. So some years GDP goes up, some years it goes down. The years it increases, we have upswing or economy is doing better. Years when it decreases, economy is doing worse compared to the previous year. Next, I would like to differentiate between recession and depression. So recession is a significant decline in national output or GDP. So when GDP decreases, we have recession. However, recession is not same thing as a depression. Remember depression of the 1930s, that's very well known. That's the only time we had severe depression in the last 100 years. So depression is an especially lengthy and deep decline in output. There are a couple of other things I would like to focus on. Peak is during the business cycle the highest point of output before a recession begins. So let me show you in the graph where the peak is. So in this graph, this is the peak. When this is the highest point, since then the GDP decreases. Compared to peak, there's a trough. Trough is during the business cycle the lowest point of output in a recession before the recovery begins. So let me show you. In this graph, this is trough. The trough is the lowest point before a recovery begins. Now in US, business cycle is dated by National Bureau of Economic Research or NBER. This is a not-for-profit organization, consists of economists and policymakers, and they are responsible for business cycle dating. They are the one who says that when recession has started and when it ended. So we'll look into their website. So we'll go into their website by reaching this NBER website. So what you see here, US business cycle expansion and contractions, and it has contraction happens from peak to trough, whereas expansion happens from trough to peak. And NBER has been dating it since 1854. The latest recession we had was from December 2007 till June 2009. It was called Great Recession. That happened almost 10 years back, and that lasted for almost 18 months. That's peak to trough. Prior to that, last recession we had from March 2001 till November 2001. Then before that we had recession from July 1990 till March 1991. And you can see there is no guarantee that recession will happen in a certain specific time period. Nobody knows when a recession starts, and nobody knows when it's going to end. And that's why macroeconomics is very interesting, because we cannot predict or pinpoint the dates of the start and the end of recessions specifically. We can only pinpoint at it after the recession has started or recession has ended.